Namaste, aloha, and we are back again with another Krishna book reading exciting extravaganza. My name is Janapati Das. Please accept my respects. Thank you again for following along and listening to these wonderful pastimes of Lord Sri Krishna and the wonderful words of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Please accept my respects. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto my Guru Dev, Siddha Swarupananda Srila Prabhupada, who has mercifully instructed us on not only the words of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, but also just on the words of Sri Krishna in the pastimes of Sri Krishna. And so, as instructed, we will always begin with our hearing and chanting of Krishna's names, the Kirtan meditation, which is, as Lord Chaitanya has so wonderfully stated, the prime benediction for humanity at large, because of its ability to cool the blazing fire of material existence. In other words, conditional life, false identity with the body, and our misery of trying to attempt to find pleasure and material happiness, but ultimately ending up in lots of suffering. So let's chant some. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Mastaya Bhutale Srimate Siddha Swarupananda Amahamsa Tinamine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Mastaya Bhutale Srimate Siddha Swarupananda God Hara, Srivasadi Gaur, Bhaktivinoda, Hari Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Gaur, Hari Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Nitai Gaur, Hari Gaur, Hari Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari. Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Gauranga, Gauranga. Chaitanya, 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 Haribo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this is a wonderful prayer at the very beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, first verse. And it's basically offering our respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, of which the Srimad Bhagavatam is solely based upon through his different pastimes and incarnations and so much wonderful things that are discussed upon in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And the Krishna book is as we've said before, is a summary of the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, he originally wrote because he was very old when he was compiling it and didn't think he would be able to translate the full Srimad Bhagavatam, which is actually something like 13 cantos or 14 cantos. I'm not exactly sure, maybe somebody can, but he was able to do 10, sorry. No, 12, sorry, 12. He did 12. Yeah, he did 12. He was eventually able to translate most of them. And so it's a wonderful thing to read. It did take me many, many years to read it because it's not like reading, I don't know, some simple book, Huckleberry Finn or something like that. You just can read it through. It's packed full of adventures and stories and philosophy and wisdom and all the purports by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So it's wonderful. It's very, very wonderful. So as we left off here, we were reading again, continuing this chapter on the descriptions of autumn. And we had just started talking a little bit about what Krishna and his friends would do during autumn. Before there was a very lengthy and detailed description of analysis of autumn and the particulars of autumn in relation to different kinds of spiritual truth. So if you don't remember that, you can go back to a couple videos before and listen to it again. Or if you have the Krishna book, I'd suggest reading it over and over again. It's very wonderful. And it's also in a book by A.C. Bhaktivedanta that he compiled called The Light of the Bhagavat. Light of the Bhagavat. And it's a book also that is just specifically this chapter in it. So if you ever find that copy, you can read that too. At such times, Krishna would praise nature's special activities during the rainy season. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that the material energy or nature is not independent in its actions. Material energy is actually under the subservient and it's one of Krishna's energies, subservient to. So the things that happen in material nature happen because of the superintendence of Krishna. It's not like it's on its own, that it's rampant in that nature is out of control or that things are on its own course or whatever. Nature is acting under the superintendence of Krishna. It is also stated in the Brahma Samhita that material nature known as Durga is acting as the shadow of Krishna. Whatever order is sent from Krishna, material nature obeys. Therefore, the natural beauty created by the rainy season was acted out according to the indications of Krishna. Soon all the water reservoirs became very clean and pleasing, and refreshing air was blowing everywhere because of the appearance of autumn. The sky was completely cleared of all clouds, and it recovered its natural blue color. The blooming lotus flower in the clear water in the forest appeared like a person who has fallen down from yoga practice, but again has become beautiful by resuming his spiritual life. It's very nice, actually. Another analogy. So the lotus flower, it comes up, if you've ever seen the lotus flower, it comes up from the plant exists in the water, and the flower stem comes up from the ground. And the flower is not touched by the water. So it's a very similar analogy. It's often used that the devotee of Krishna pure devotee is not touched by material nature because they've dedicated their life to Krishna completely. Everything becomes naturally beautiful with the appearance of the autumn season. Similarly, when a materialistic person takes to Krishna consciousness and spiritual life, he also becomes clear as the sky and water in autumn. The autumn season takes away the rolling dark clouds of the sky as well as the polluted water. Filthy conditions on the ground also become cleansed. Similarly, a person who takes to Krishna consciousness immediately becomes cleansed of all dirty things, within and without. Krishna is therefore known as Hari. Hari means he who takes away. Krishna immediately takes away all unclean habits from anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness. The clouds of autumn are white, for they do not carry any water. Similarly, a retired man being freed from all responsibility of family affairs, namely maintaining home, wife, and children, and taking completely to Krishna consciousness, becomes freed from all anxieties and looks as white as clouds in autumn. Sometimes in autumn the falls come down from the tops of the hills to supply clean water, and sometimes they stop. Similarly, sometimes great saintly persons distribute clear knowledge, and sometimes they are silent. The small ponds, which are filled with water because of the rainy season, gradually dry up in autumn. As for the tiny aquatics living in the reservoirs, they cannot understand that their numbers are diminishing day by day, as the materially engrossed persons cannot understand that their duration of life is being reduced day by day. Such persons are engaged in maintaining cows, property, children, wife, society, and friendship. Due to the reduced water and scorching heat from the sun in the autumn season, the small creatures living in small reservoirs of water are much disturbed. They are exactly like uncontrolled persons who are always unhappy from being unable to enjoy life or maintain their family members. The muddy earth gradually dries up, and newly grown fresh vegetables begin to wither. Similarly, for one who has taken to Krishna consciousness, desire for family enjoyment gradually dries up. And also said that Lord Hari is the one who steals or one who takes away. Krishna also takes away the desires that you have for material enjoyment, which is the source of all material pain and suffering, ultimately. That's why it's said that all material attempts at material pleasure and material enjoyment end up in pain. Because, initially you may get a little, like they say, you get a little water in your reservoir or whatever, but eventually it dries up. So even if you're lucky materially, in the sense that you get some kind of enjoyment, some kind of happiness, some kind of quality, maybe you're very talented, you get picked up by a record company. I always think about musicians because I'm a musician, and I just see the same pattern. People drive, they really, really want to be a music star. But those people that are music stars live a very miserable life, ultimately, because they're just harassed. Harassed are they? They're just driven to produce so much stuff, and they find that it just becomes a source of suffering. That's why oftentimes many musicians turn to drugs or even suicide. It's a very sad situation. And you will see that most pop stars and most stars ultimately have some kind of dilemma in their life that has to do with their performance or their life in relation to being a star and they come to a crossroads in their life. Some people don't. I think of like Whitney Houston, turned to drugs, and she ultimately died, drowned or whatever it was, tried a drug overdose, but those people that come out of that, oftentimes they have some kind of revelation, or it's God, or some spiritual realization. They turn to Jesus or whatever, and that helps them through. But sometimes people don't. So, but also on the flip side, when you're chanting, you find that, wow, you start to see things for what they really are, that the enjoyment of the material world is fleeting, it's temporary, it doesn't ultimately satisfy. You really see that in very clear ways of seeing that. And so those desires for those things that used to be so wonderful, and wow, if I only had this, or only did this, or only was with this girl, or whatever, you just see it for what it is, and you really are just more attracted to engaging in service to Krishna. And so that becomes a very attractive thing, and the other things are like not so attractive anymore, because you see them for what they are. Because of the appearance of the autumn season, the water of the ocean becomes calm and quiet, just as a person developed in self-realization is no longer disturbed by the three modes of material nature. In autumn, farmers save the water within the fields by building strong walls so that the water contained within the fields cannot run out. There is hardly any hope for new rainfall, therefore they want to save whatever is in the field. Similarly, a person who is actually advanced in self-realization protects his energy by controlling the senses. It is advised that after the age of 50, one should retire from family life and should conserve the energy of the body for utilization in the advancement of Krishna consciousness. Unless one is able to control the senses and engage them in the transcendental loving service of Mukunda, there is no possibility of salvation. So that's very true. In householder life, speaking as a householder, you have so many things that go on, so many engagements that you have to deal with that just takes so much of your time and so much of your energy. If you're doing that just in the hope of finding some kind of happiness and pleasure for yourself, it's draining. It doesn't really actually ultimately become happy or satisfying. And I was thinking about that situation because here in Hawaii we have these situations where people want, not just Hawaii but anywhere, but there's a particular situation where there was a little girl who was missing, been missing for months, and they're pretty much convinced that she was dead, and now the foster parents are being charged with murder because they didn't report that she was missing. Whether they did it or not, they don't know, but they haven't been able to find her body or find her anywhere. So this happens. People, they really think, oh, if I only had a child and to love, and if I were a mother or a father, I would be happy. And then they get the kid, and then they realize, oh, wow, it's driving me nuts. And, that's what you realize. Most parents just deal with it, and they help, they got to do the best they can with it. But then some parents, they don't. They want to they treat their children horribly, or they kill their children, which is the situation. So they've gone from this desire of wanting children to a desire of killing their children to try to get them away. And then when they kill the children, they're probably like, oh, if I only had a child. That's how the mind works. During the daytime in autumn, the sunshine is very scorching, but at night, due to the clear moonshine, people get relief from the day's fatigue. If a person takes to the shelter of Mukunda or Krishna, he can be saved from the fatigue of misidentifying the body with the self. Mukunda or Krishna is also the source of solace in the damsels of Vrindavan. The damsels of Vrajabhumi are always suffering because of separation from Krishna. When they meet Krishna during the moonlit autumn night, their fatigue of separation is also satiated. When the sky is clear of all clouds, the stars at night shine very beautifully. Similarly, when a person is actually situated in Krishna consciousness, he is cleared of all dirty things and becomes as beautiful as the stars in the autumn sky. Although the Vedas prescribe karma in the form of offering sacrifices, their ultimate purpose is stated in the Bhagavad Gita. One has to accept Krishna consciousness after thoroughly understanding the purpose of the Vedas. Therefore, the clean heart exhibited by a devotee in Krishna consciousness can be compared to the clean sky of the autumn season. During autumn, the moon looks very bright, along with the stars in the clear sky. Lord Krishna himself appeared in the sky of the Yadu dynasty, and he was exactly like the moon, surrounded by the stars, or the members of the Yadu dynasty. When there are ample blooming flowers in the gardens in the forest, the fresh aromatic breeze gives a great relief to the person who has suffered during the summer and rainy seasons. Unfortunately, such breezes could not give any relief to the gopis because their heart's dedication to Krishna. People in general might have taken pleasure in that nice autumn breeze, but the gopis, not being embraced by Krishna, were not very satisfied. On arrival of the autumn season, all the cows, deers, birds, and females in general become pregnant, because in that season, generally, all the husbands become impelled by sex desire. This is exactly like the transcendentalists who, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, are bestowed with the benediction of their destinations in life. Srila Rupa Goswami has instructed in his Upanishmrita that one should follow devotional service with great enthusiasm, patience, and conviction, and should follow the rules and regulations, keep oneself clean from material contamination, and stay in the association of the devotees. By following these principles, one is sure to achieve the desired results of devotional service. For he who patiently follows the regulative principles of devotional service, the time will come when he will achieve the result, as the wives who reap results by becoming pregnant. So also in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 3rd chapter, there is often talk about karma yoga and the idea of trying to become a yogi, or trying to enter in a situation that's more spiritually advanced instead of following the rules and regulations. In sadhana bhakti, we're given certain things to do because our mind is not purified. We're clouded with desires and overall with the material energy and the material modes of nature. And the rules and regulations that we practice, including sadhana bhakti, the chanting of Krishna's names, the japa, Gauranga breathing, reading the Krishna book, listening to the saintly person speak, but also many other things that we put on there as well. We get up in the morning, we clean our body. We also try to keep our mind clean by focusing on these things in sadhana bhakti instead of focusing on things that are material, that won't help us advance spiritually. And so that's similarly, we were talking about earlier in this chapter, the use of our time in spiritual endeavor, spiritual things, doing those things that we should do and not doing those things that we shouldn't do, and not wasting our time doing things that we shouldn't do because it takes us further away from Krishna. When we're young, we don't really think about it because we think we're young, we have a lot of energy, but we don't really have any kind of contract or guarantee of how long we're going to be in this body. And when we're older, it definitely becomes much more and more apparent that you want to spend more time pursuing spiritual matters. But in the story of Lord Nrsingadev and Prahlad Maharaj was 5 years old. Maybe many of you know that story. Prahlad Maharaj was the son of a great demon king named Hiranyakashipu, but he was a saint. He was a pure devotee by the dint that he was given instruction. His mother was given instruction by the great saint Narada Muni, and Prahlad was in the womb, heard all this spiritual knowledge in the womb, became a pure devotee even before he came out, even though he was born in a family of demons. And so he was telling, when he was 5, he told all of his classmates, all of his kids, why are you playing right now? We should be chanting, we should be engaging. And the kids were like, well, Prahlad, we're only 5 years old. We want to play. We can do that when we're teenagers or later. So when you're teenagers, no, you just think about girls. And and when you're in your 20s, well, when we're older, no, we want to marry those girls. And then you're like, oh, then we'll do it later. And then, no, later after that, you'll be wanting to make money and be a householder and have a house and a wife and kids. And you can do it after that. And said, oh, no, after that, you want to be dealing with your grandkids. So it's always really good to start very early. And if you have children, you engage your children in spiritual knowledge and to help them understand that they are not the body, they're not their mind, they're not matter. They won't find any happiness in the things that they pursue. They should be engaging their life in spiritual pursuit to get out of the material world, because we've been given this very, very rare and wonderful form of a body of a human in which we can inquire about spiritual knowledge. If you're in the body of many, 8,400,000 species of other living entities, you don't really have that kind of capacity, and you're just being reborn, and you come into a human form of life. If you waste that human form of life engaging the same way you've been engaging in every body that you've been in the past, whether it's human or bug or dog or whatever, trying to find happiness, trying to find pleasure in the material world, eating the chewing the chewed, you just go through that. You reap your karma from what you've done in the past, and you make new karma for the future. And in this way, you become Nitya Bandhu, eternally bound. What they call eternally bound is just the living entity who's consistently bound in the material world on the samsara wheel of birth and death. So that's why it says that, you patiently follow those rules and regulations daily. Just like you take a bath every day, just like you go to work every day, just like you brush your teeth every day, you follow your regulative principles, and you try to do it really well. And in that way, you'll find that those kinds of things purify. It cleans the pond, it clears the clouds away. You start to see, you start to taste the happiness. If you push it away, if you don't follow it nicely, if you don't follow it at all, and you think, I don't really want to do that today, I don't want to follow this, I don't want to do that today, I'll do it again, maybe next week or something, then you'll find that your mind will move in. The mind moves in and becomes more and more attracted to the material energy. I'd rather be doing this. And then you find that, you're attracted to friends who are like, hey, what are you doing? Why don't you come out with us and, have a beer or have some meat, and before you know it, then you're just completely bound again, and you're not following this procedure. During the autumn, the lotus flowers in the lake grow in large numbers because of the absence of lilies. Both the lilies and the lotus flowers grow by sunshine, but during the autumn season, the scorching sunshine helps only the lotus. This example is given in the case of the country, where the king or the government is strong. The rise of unwanted elements like thieves and robbers cannot prosper. When the citizens become confident that they will not be attacked by robbers, they develop very satisfactorily. A strong government is compared to the scorching sunshine in the autumn season. The lilies are compared to unwanted persons like robbers, and the lotus flowers are compared to the satisfied citizens of the government. During the autumn, the fields become filled with ripened grains. It's really very common nowadays that the government just allows the lilies to just take over. In fact, the government are the lilies. So even they're just encouraging, they themselves are the robbers and the corrupt people, so that therefore it's not very surprising that people try to rip you off, because the government is also full of these people. During autumn, the fields are filled with ripened grains. At that time, the people become happy over the harvest and observe various ceremonies. Just checking my time. Okay. Such as Navana, the offering of new grains to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The new grains are first offered to the deities in various temples, and all are invited to take sweet rice made of these new grains. There are other religious ceremonies and methods of worship, particularly in Bengal, where the greatest of all such ceremonies is held, called Durga Puja. We're going to finish this up. Got one more paragraph. In Vrindavan, the autumn season was very beautiful then because of the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna and Balaram. The mercantile community, the royal order, and great sages were free to move to achieve their desired benedictions. It's also very wonderful that my spiritual master has always said that it would be nice to go to Vrindavan in India, where Krishna spent his pastimes. But wherever the Guru Dev is, wherever your spiritual master is, wherever the chanting of Krishna's names is, that is where Vrindavan is. If you're engaging in that, you don't have to be at Vrindavan geographically, because oftentimes people who don't, just similarly like Arjuna wanted to go off to the forest and not engage in his duty, he wanted to be a yogi and he didn't have the consciousness to do that. So similarly, people go to Vrindavan, they see flies and dirt and lots of cows, and they don't really see what they think they should be seeing. That's why it's better to hear from your Guru Dev, hear from the spiritual master, to engage in the spiritual process of hearing and chanting Krishna's names, because wherever the hearing of Krishna's names are, Vrindavan is there, Krishna is there, Radha is there, Balaram is there, your spiritual master is present. Everybody is present. All the devotees are present in the name and hearing and the chanting of Krishna's names. So that's a very important point. I'm trying to think where we are here. In Vrindavan, the autumn season was very beautiful then because of the presence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna and Balaram. The mercantile community, the royal order, and great sages were free to move to achieve their desired benedictions. Similarly, the transcendentalists, when freed from the encagement of the material body, also achieved their desired goal. I love that, encaged. When we talked about that many times, it's like the body being a bird cage and the spirit soul being the bird trapped in the cage. We spend so much time on our bird cage, and the bird is dying. During the rainy season, the mercantile community cannot move from one place to another, so do not get their desired profit, nor can the royal order go from one place to another to collect taxes from the people. As for saintly persons who must travel to preach transcendental knowledge, they are also restrained by the rainy season. But during the autumn, all of them leave their confines. In case of the transcendentalist, be he a Gyani, a yogi, or a devotee, because of the material body, he cannot actually enjoy spiritual achievement. But as soon as he gives up the body or after the death, the Gyani merges into the transcendental effulgence of the Supreme Lord. The yogi transfers himself to the various higher planets, and the devotee goes to the planet of the Supreme Lord, Goloka Vrindavan, or the Vaikuntha, and thus enjoys his eternal spiritual life. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 20th chapter of Krishna, description of the autumn. So wonderful. I love that chapter. Very beautiful. I mean, I always say I love all the chapters because they're very wonderful. So it's a very awesome thing to do. Take your Krishna book, have it by your bed, take a chapter if you've got deities, read a chapter of Krishna book to Krishna at night, or if you go to bed or in the morning. Right now I'm reading it in the morning after I offer my morning offering to my deity. We read from Krishna book because it's so wonderful, so beautiful, and it's just ever joyful. So next chapter is going to be the gopis attracted by the flute. So it's so exciting. Another wonderful chapter coming up here. So stay tuned, and we're going to chant some more right now. Thank you very much. Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama
right. Thank you very much. As always, please share, subscribe, and make a comment in the comment section below. Thank you very much.